Hi there, I'm Daz Smith, and today I am going to do target 17 for the Farsight Institute. So let's get right to this. I'm going to do this in several parts because it's quite a complex target that we did. So, target 17. Okay, so I have three things here to start with. I'll separate these. A, B, and C. A feels like land. This is remote. Feels isolated. Feels very natural. Green, rolling hills or undulating land. Very green in a remote location. Feels like Earth, or Earth-like, natural. There is life. Feels sparsely populated. Sparse population. I feel that there's more animal life than human life in the area. Yeah, so a remote, isolated, natural location, undulating hills, possibility of water there. There's quite a lot of movement and fluidity, so it's quite possible there's a river close or running through the target here. Location. Okay, so that's the A component. Let's try to do the B part now. Now that feels more like a motion involved here. Feels like a downwards motion to it, a movement and energy. So the B, yeah, it's definitely a motion, definitely a downwards descent motion. This has velocity to it. Well, that's an interesting word, velocity. Picking up speed, expending energy. And this feels like it involves something here. B. This feels like there's an object involved. And it feels like it's surrounded by space. Feels like it's above. Feels like it's in motion. So this definitely feels like a vehicle. Does it feel like a vehicle? Yes, because it feels controlled to some degree, which is interesting. So it feels like there's a natural location. Yeah, definitely a natural location. Isolated, not desolate, but isolated. And there also feels like there's a B component of motion, which is downwards. Downwards going at speed or gathering speed from above, lots of air around it, fast moving. I can hear the rush, feel the heat, feel the energy, feels like bits coming off it, winking. There's a winking movement to this, and it feels like an object because it's an object in space or up in the air that's moving. It's either a vehicle or some kind of natural thing like an asteroid or meteor or something like that. Okay, so that's the B component of this. Let's try now to describe the C component here, the end part. And from previous ideograms of mine, that looks a little bit like motions. Let's try to see. Yeah, energy, a great expel of energy, and it falls outwards in waves, moving outwards. I want to say explosive, violent, release. And I got an AOL here in my head. of a controlled explosion. So on first glances, it feels like the target consists of an event in a natural location where we see some kind of aerial object that feels a little bit like a vehicle. It's moving along, comes into some major descent, something happens, it moves down at a rapidly increasing velocity and speed, and then the conclusion of this feels like it's some kind of mass expel of energy, some kind of big explosion that's in waves in every direction. Waves of energy, particles of energy, heat, huge amount of not wind, pressure moving outwards from a central core. And this feels, has an element of feeling controlled. This whole thing, the object part of it feels a little bit controlled here. Okay, so let's see what else we get here on this. Very interesting. Because it's so remote. That's what's strange about this. It feels, yeah, remote and isolated. It does feel observed though. It feels like it might be an observed event, but not by many. Very strange. So let's go target 17. Okay, yeah, lots of energy. The release of energy seems to move horizontally on the target afterwards. So if we have an initial energy release here, it seems to move out this way more than it does vertically in big waves of energy. Energy that moves horizontally more than vertically. I mean, it does move vertically. I can see and feel it up above, but for some reason it seems to feel more outwards than inwards. This feels damaging, hot, airy, explosive, lots of particles, very forceful. Pushing outwards as it goes, pushing outwards with huge big waves of controlled energy. Another part of this target feels important is surface. Seems to be a key word for this target. An interaction with the surface. So this feels like an object that falls from the sky and interacts with the surface of a location. But what it doesn't feel like an impact, strangely. It feels like there's a downwards motion, an explosion here above a surface, slightly above a surface. So here's the surface of the land. It feels like there's an explosive action above the surface of the land, but that still interacts with the surface. So it feels like, yeah, it feels like an explosive event that interacts with the surface, caused by some kind of descending object. Okay, so let's see if we can get a bit more on this object. Very interesting so far. So, target 17. Okay, feels aerodynamic. Oh, can't smell. Feels flowing, moving rapidly. Then it stutters. Fells. Okay, stutters. What do I mean by stutter? It's having a motion like this. And stops and starts. Oh, interestingly, it feels circular, kind of like this, egg-shaped maybe, seed-shaped, egg-shaped, circular, round, at times, not always circular. Oh, this is interesting. It feels like, I'm going to feel a bit strange this feels like an object that's man-made, that I can only see at times here. I wonder if this is the problem. So before it drops, there's a motion that's moving across but slightly down, but the motion is in stops and starts. So it's almost like in the middle has a hiccup and a judder, has a hiccup and a judder. And at these points where we have the hiccups, I can see the object. And it feels and looks round and solid in nature and glowing. But the parts in between blur. The object blurs, changes shape, it almost stretches vertically. So at the points in between, the object almost stretches up and down, blurs, becomes invisible slightly, disappears. Very strange. So this feels like it distorts. At times this feels like there's distortion. And this feels like it's time, space, and dimensions. Because the whole air around this feels weird as well. In fact, the whole air about all of it almost leaves an air or a signature or something where it travels, a wave, a signature, a space, leaves a space as it travels through the air. So it feels like an object that's moving through the air, moving fine, then all of a sudden it starts to almost hiccup in stops and starts where it's invisible, visible, invisible, visible. And these feel very strange. It's almost like it's moving in and out some kind of time or dimensions at the point where it's having these hiccups. Very strange. And this object does feel man-made in some kind of way because it feels there is a curved element to it. It's not entirely, it's not symmetrical, it's not round, it just feels curved in a way. So let's try to track the motion a bit more and see what we can find actually happens to this. Right, so let's get back to this object. Let's try to track the motion. So yeah, this stops and starts. Okay, so we have land here, and the end result is here above the land. Big waves extending out miles in every direction. This feels like an explosive energy. And this feels planned. And I'm going to put an AOL here of self-destruct, which sounds weird because then it leads me to believe that it's not a natural object, it's more of a controlled vehicle type object. So we had this circular type object, not circular exactly, but curved. It's moving along perfectly fine. Oh, hang on, it feels like some kind of natural waves, energy, event, interaction buffers it. Here. from a different direction, from above. And that's when this structured object has these kind of stuttering type occurrence where it almost, oh, before this point here it's not visible. It's not physical. Or viewable. Something happens to it. It feels like it gets hit by some kind of natural, I don't know, kind of wave of energy that feels like it's moving in the sky above it. Causes some kind of internal problem, which seems to make, I don't know, something happen to it where it winks or stutters in and out of what feels like time, space and dimension, because it feels like it's there, it's not there, it's there, it's not there. And when it is there, it's doesn't feel fully there. It feels like there's a whole weird thing going on here where everything feels distorted. And while this has happened, it feels like there's an intent to correct and get back into control. It feels like something's happening, an accident, yeah, accident's a word, accident. It feels like someone's trying to get control of it but can't, and it just gets worse and worse as a problem, and then it becomes more physical. As the problem gets worse, the object becomes more physical, so the stuttering becomes less, so it doesn't stutter in and out of time and space. It becomes more physical, and it's dropping fast, picking up speed, lots of speed. And then it feels like a decision's made to destroy, to save the object. It's purposely destructed. Yeah. And it may be that the controlled descent, well, semi-controlled descent, help find the location, because strangely it does seem to be remote. Very strange object. Yeah, very strange. So let's try to get a bit more on this view, or summarise where we are so far with this. Very interesting. Feels like a controlled object, feels like a vehicle. High tech, but not anything I've physically seen here. Maybe some stuff in RV and books, that kind of thing, science fiction. So target 17. So you have this object that's moving, and it's okay at first, so it's moving along, hit something here, stutters, gets worse, descends, and then terminates here above the surface. Causing a massive explosion, sending waves and particles and debris and shock waves in every direction, more horizontal than vertical though, damaging the surface, interacting with the surface of the land. Now this object feels controlled at first. At first it's invisible, and it doesn't feel physical. Then it feels like from this direction there are these strange energy waves. Which may be natural. because they feel like they're flowing from a long direction. Vast space. So this feels like it's above ground. This feels like it's in space, above a planet, above Earth. So it's above space. This causes problem with the object, something to do with its drive, its energy or something, causes it to start winking in and out of time and space, which sounds weird to say this kind of thing. Physical, non-physical, physical, non-physical, and in between it's like some kind of strange kind of cloud of energy or something. Very strange stuff. It gets worse and worse and worse, and it feels like inside this, it feels like there's 2 to 3 life. I'll look at this in more detail in a minute. It feels like they're almost trying to get this under control. It feels like there's almost a kind of controlled panic. It's not like I would panic, or I would get frantic and emotional. There's no emotionality behind the panic. And then at some point they become aware that it's unrepairable. Around about here. They allow it then to descend, but choose an angle for the descent. And then they purposely explode the object, so it doesn't impact. I don't know why. I get a sense that there's a feeling that there will be less damage all round if they destroy rather than if it crashes. Maybe there'll be stuff left. Maybe they do it just. There's a kind of feeling that it's purposely destroyed to destroy more of it, so there's no residue bits left behind that people could see, use, it'd be influenced by. It has that kind of feeling behind it. So far we have what appears to be an event that happens in a natural location, which feels remote, isolated, feels very natural. Feels like there's greenery there, feels like there's undulating land, feels like it's Earth or all Earth or Earth-like. Life there. There may be human life, but if there are, it's very sparse and sporadic. It feels like there's more nature type life there. There may be a river or water close by as well. Feels like there's some kind of object moving from the air, moving through space, moving fine. It doesn't feel like it's physical at first, or it doesn't feel like it's viewable in our wavelength spectrum, whatever you want to say about that. That seemed to get interacted with some kind of flowing waves of energy from far off in space. Causes something to happen to some kind of energy drive system or something on this object, which then causes it to move in and out of time, space and dimension in a stuttering motion that gets progressively worse. At some point it's decided that this isn't savable, which is a choice that's made. Then the object is moved in a controlled descent, increasing velocity downwards, and purposely then it feels like it's destroyed above the surface of the land to cause less harm, to cause less influence. I think that's it so far. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the tape here, get myself a drink, come back, and then we'll try to get a bit more about inside this object. You know, see what's driving it, what their plans are, all that type of thing, because it seems to be a bit of an anomaly. A word that keeps sticking with me with this entire target is that 2 words really: velocity, 3 actually, velocity, service and anomaly. So we'll come back, we'll have a look at what we call the anomaly part in a bit more detail. Okay, so we're back again now. Had a drink, refreshed myself. And now we're going to see if we can get more detail on this. Where's my pen? Okay, we're going to try to move inside this object type thing and see what we can find out here. See if we can get more information on it. So, 17, we have this object type thing. We're going to move inside. Okay, so it's very white, bright, opaque, curved. I say curved in the loosest sense here because when this object's normal or traveling unhindered or not broken or something, it feels curved inside, very, very bright, very, very white, clean. There's a hum and there's energy, warm, comfortable. But when I say curved, curved isn't exactly right. It is curved. But this sounds weird, but the object has no physicality. It's not physical. I don't know how that works, but that's what I feel. And inside this object, it feels like there are free life. They feel male in orientation. And when I see them, it's almost like they are like moving like the craft. They kind of stutter in and out of physicality. So I don't feel that the natural state is not physical. The life feels just as happy being non-physical or dimensional. This whole thing feels like it exists. Oh, it's so hard to put into words. It exists in a way that's different than we can comprehend. It's there, but it's not there to us and how we comprehend and see things. Even though it's not physical, it's there physically in some kind of dimensional way. I don't know. I can't put it into words what I'm feeling with this. So there feels like there's free lives in there. They feel male, and it feels like I'm watching the craft and them both stutter or wink in and out of physicality. And when they're not physical, they're kind of like you'd see a normal kind of greyish type, alien type character, I think. So I'm drawing it here with non-joined up lines because it feels all sparkly and wavy. It feels like they're made of energy in waves, and there are all these little sparkles of energy. That they're made of. Wavy, shimmering, and then for a second or two it's like they waver, and it feels like they then become more physical, and that when they do become more physical, the shape changes, then it becomes a bit more solid. You can see traditional looking dark eye type structure here. It doesn't look aggressive though, or scary. It's plain looking. Does that sound right? Not scary. Yeah, and it feels like they have long finished limbs. Doesn't look like they're clothed, but they probably are. It feels like they may have 4 fingers. Long fingers in some kind of hand structure type thing. So I know this sounds like some kind of sci-fi thing, but it feels like there are 3 male orientated because it doesn't feel female. Life forms in this structure, when they are physical, which isn't often and isn't much during what I see, because they kind of stutter in and out of non-physicality, but they're mainly non-physical or non-dimensional. The non-dimensional is the better word. They're more energy. They consist more of energy and vibration and wave than they do physicality. But when they do appear physical, which seems to be not correct, it's almost like they have it reversed from us, whereas we're 99% physical, but we have a non-physicality that we don't personally get to see, but it's experienced through some kind of force type, spirit type thing, which is 1%. They seem to have a reverse thing where they're 99% non-physical, non-dimensional energy beings, and if forced, almost like we do through sleep and meditation and stuff, they can revert to a physical or semi-physical state. Now they feel like they're in control of this object. They feel like it's on a mission, so it's got a goal, mission, and this feels like it's almost like a geophysical. It feels like they're a forward kind of mission, planning, surveying. Actually, it feels like they're doing a survey. Some kind of like geological type survey or something. They're on a way to do this kind of geological survey type thing. Something happens, something energy wise hits, buffers, interrupts the craft, and what it does, this guy's kind of trying to show me and explain, there's some kind of problem. Waves hit the object, and there's some kind of problem with gravity, waves, and propulsion. Energy, gravity, waves, propulsion. I don't know, something feels like it malfunctions, breaks. It's not too bad at first, it gets worse and worse and worse. And then these guys, they kind of make the decision then to have a controlled descent towards the surface, to move away from and not hinder any major population, but they finally decide, and it seems very calmly the way they do this, they decide to self-destruct at the last possible minute to save the mission goal, which has some kind of element of non-interference. So by self-destruction, instead of impacting or crashing the craft or object, they destroy more of the object, but they can also control the descent as well. Yeah, so it's purposely done. They know they're not getting out of it alive, so they destroy the object in the best way possible to destroy as much of it as they can. The evidence, I'd say evidence, or remains, remains evidence. So it feels like free, non-human, non-physical or dimensional existing life forms in an object that is also dimensional, moves through time and space and dimensions more than it moves through physical. Buffer gets hit by some kind of energy wave from space, feels like it's natural, just an accident that happens, it's just one of those things, causes what feels like some kind of dimensional gravity drive or something to break. It gets worse and worse and worse. This causes them to wink in and out of time, space and dimension in a strange way, distorting them, breaking them, making it worse. They hit a point of maximum velocity where they move downwards. At that point, a decision is made to move the craft or object as much as possible into the natural location, where they purposely destroy the object so as not to leave as much technology, information, damage, destruction behind as possible. Non-interference. This feels like it's a past event. Feels like it really damages the natural location. Waves of energy, I can feel waves of energy probably felt right across the planet. But literally for a lot of miles in every direction, but it does feel more horizontal than vertical, although some is expelled vertically up, including waves of energy. Yeah, it's almost like they've got a self-destruct button. They get to a point and it's like maximum point where we can do it, cause the least amount of damage, but destroy as much of us as possible so as not to leave anything behind to influence, and they're gone kind of thing. I think that's all I'm going to get on this right now, really. So yeah, very strange target, very interesting. Not what I was expecting at all, to be honest. So it feels, in summary, feels like an accidental event in a natural location, which is remote, isolated. Feels like it's very natural, green, luscious, away from population. Feels like some kind of interaction happens above ground, in space or in the air above the land, with some kind of extra dimensional or non-physical object, which seems to be controlled like a vehicle, causes this to have problems with its energy system or drive system, which then makes it kind of wink in and out of time and space. This vehicle seems like it's being driven by three-dimensional non-physical beings that then make the decision that the vehicle cannot be recovered, the mission cannot be recovered, so to cause the least amount of impact, they kind of control the velocity and descent of the object, destroying it above ground. And this all happened in the past. There's a past event. So that's all I'm pretty much getting on target 17. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.